the first thing you said is you begin to engage with them with the truth or with the Bible. And so I want to talk about how important it is to be knowledgeable and study and have intellectual vigor or a structure behind you so that people can have something to stand on. We'll be right back.
Yeah.
This is Grace Talks. Grace Talks. Here with my friend Brett. Some really, really extremely good points there. And I want to cover some of them, but particularly the first one. When you're engaging with people, also to engage with people with the mindset of, I'm going to listen to them. I want to hear them. I want them to be heard, because that is a great step in getting. And we don't do it selfishly. We have to be sincere about it. But one of the reasons we do it is because people receive from us when they know you're listening. I mean, that is so true that if people really believe that you have their ear, they begin to engage with you so much more and begin to trust what you're saying. But the next point is, and I really think this is important, and I say this especially when engaging in this critical age that we're living in, because sometimes we want to be helpful, but we're not intellectual enough to know that our ideas are actually hurtful. And so you look at a group of people that may be oppressed or maybe have some things that have come against them, and you want to help them, you want to be compassionate about them, but you don't know anything about the history, or you don't know anything that works, and sometimes our compassion can hurt people. So my idea, how important is it to just be, again, not only intellectually brave or honest or curious, but how important is it to know history and the first thing you did was talk about the Bereans, meaning that you knew the Bible, you engaged them with a knowledge and understanding of the truth of the Bible, and that was how you injected your ideas to them. But how important is it, if I'm going to have a conversation about race or about the police, that I have to know some facts and some history so that I can bring truth in these situations?
Yeah, I mean, it's extremely important, and it's hard because it takes a lot of work from you.
That's exactly right.
And you can come into it knowing nothing, but just remember that if you know nothing about the topic, you are the listener in this conversation. And if you think you know something about the topic, and then people present you with something that you did not know, then it's time to take a pause and say, I didn't know that. Either take a break in the conversation or ask for further clarification, depending on if you trust them or not. Sometimes you engage with conversations and people you see very quickly they're aggressive and biased. And so you may not trust that information, but if they send you a study that's factual, and it's something you didn't know, if you don't trust them to provide follow-up information, then it's on you to say, hey, man, I did not come to this conversation prepared, and I need to do some further study.
Yeah, and it's okay. It's okay to say, I don't necessarily agree with that, or I don't know that. Could you send me the information? It's quite okay to do that.
People tend to respect you more when you admit that you didn't know something.
That's right.
We think that people will look down on us. If I admit that I didn't know what I was talking about, we think that gives them fodder for a gotcha. And it really doesn't. When we're humble, people are taken off guard. And so, it's okay to sit back and admit that you didn't know something. And so,
I would say this, there's no shame in saying that you don't know something, but there is shame in saying that you knew something or giving false evidence about something that you don't know, or acting like an expert in a conversation that you have no idea about, that you should remain silent on.
Yep. Absolutely. And so there's, there are a lot of things that, I've changed my viewpoint on because I did the research. And so just as you find out, that your preconceived ideas, your biases don't necessarily line up with the facts of the world.
That's right.
You have to step back.
Yeah.
And ask questions and continue asking questions until you can figure out exactly, what it is that gets there. And so, we talked about George Floyd and some systemic issues in there, and I don't want to get, too far. I don't want to go too far down that rabbit hole, but systemic racism was not a topic I knew a lot about. And I thought, in high school, I thought, well, we changed the laws, so this is not an issue anymore. And sure, racism happens, but that's not a big, it's very minor until I heard story after story after story. And, we talked about this idea, I've had a lot of positive interactions with cops. And so I, by and large, trust cops.
You bet.
And I learned that's not the case, for a lot of my friends.
That's right.
Yeah.
And
when my
even if
dad
they're the minority of people that that have a lot of negative experiences with the cop, those experiences are real.
Yeah. Yeah. Hearing my dad talk about his coworker, his friend who's African-American and has lived in his neighborhood for 15 years. And one day he was out jogging and he got pulled over by the police, who started grilling him on where he's supposed to be. And he's like, I live here. Here's my ID. And there was no apology. Oh, I'm sorry about that. It was just, all right, we'll go about your business. That is genuinely something that me and my other white friends have literally never encountered, not once in our life. And so in high school, I was, I was ignorant. I was very ignorant. If we've got Black History Month, why can't we have White History Month? That's reverse racism. Oh, I was ignorant.
Well, and do you really want? I mean, listen, I like the whole idea of Black History Month. All we do is talk about slavery. I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's like, all right, if I got to hear another slave story, y'all can keep Black History Month. That's just kind of always I thought. It's like we have all these African Americans that have put all these great things and added so much to this nation, and we're going to talk about how we were slaves for a whole month.
Yeah,
I think I'll pass on Black History Month.
Yeah. But, there's things like Black Wall Street that I would love to hear more about, and that's the type of stuff I would love to hear about.
Which the history books erased.
You
talk about in Tulsa, the highest population of Black millionaires in the country. And those and literally those people were attacked. Bombs were being dropped on U.S. citizens in our country. And we don't even know the story. We don't know anything about it. Yeah,
and that's an example of how my bias was unfounded because it was something I had never encountered, and I just accepted. History was as it's told in the history books. And then I learned. I was presented with facts. I was presented with facts about, percentage of African Americans who are indicted on charges that are really. There's a 60-year study, and I don't want to get too preachy on the topic. There's a 60-year study on the FBI that found that a majority of drug users are white, but only make up like 20% of drug arrests. So it's not that, you can say, well, it's due to historic urban areas and problems there. No, it's actually not that. It's not that at all because the majority of drug users are white.
Yeah. And we know that they have used the war on drugs to incarcerate and to go after minorities, particularly African Americans. Even some aides, back to the Reagan administration, have admitted that to be so. And we see things with the crack epidemic and the crack laws that were passed in the 80s and the 94 Drug Act that was passed, or Crime Act, rather, that was passed. We see that many of these things actually were and going against African Americans. And I think, see, that to me, if I'm going to win somebody over to a particular argument, let's just say that there is inequality and racism or bigotry or whatever the case is. If I'm going to actually win you over to that argument, a person who has not experienced these things, who does not believe these things could happen, I have to present to you facts. And I also have to be honest enough to say, you know what happened in the 20s or what happened when Black Wall Street, when they dropped bombs in Tulsa, that it's not happening now, and I don't necessarily believe that it could happen now. I sure hope not. So there has been a change in our society. There has been a progression in our society in some ways, but that doesn't mean that there aren't people that are still oppressed and that we don't have to deal with certain issues.
That's actually a really big point, is acknowledging when somebody else gets it right.
Yeah.
It's easy to say we're not there, oppression still exists. To shut down that conversation, it's very easy to do that, but it's very difficult to acknowledge we've come a long way, but we still have a long way to go.
That's exactly right.
But when you do that,
both can be true at the same time.
Exactly.
That we have progressed. That we have. I mean, you can look at statistics and you can look at things and say, look at how far we've come. But we cannot say that we're there yet when there's still disparity, and there's still people that are being oppressed, and we still have a system that does not promote the one thing that's great about communism, not communism, but one thing that's great about capitalism is the idea that you incentivize hard work, like you were talking about at the beginning. That's a great quality. It's how I train my dog. You pee outside, you get a treat. I incentivize you for doing what is good. I hate to parallel the two between humans and dogs, if you understand where I'm going there. But there is an incentive that works. But what happens to the people that are working hard and not coming into the benefits of the system? And how do we give the same opportunity of opportunity, the same opportunity to all people, and deal with because I don't care if I go to a hospital and my leg's broken. I don't care if the doctor's black. I don't care if it's a Muslim. I don't care what religion you practice. I just care that you're adequate enough to fix my leg. So we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater and then say, okay, opportunity of outcomes is more important than giving opportunity to people that actually deserve it, and push people out. How do we correct the system so that it is equitable for all?
Right. And that, it's such a difficult,
it takes thought and conversation. It takes stressing. Yeah.
It's just, we have to talk about it.
That's right.
And, one of the big conversations around that, and one of the examples I use, because I hear, we changed the laws, so therefore minorities are, better, and that's true, and you acknowledge. But the idea being, look, the analogy that I go is, if I'm paid, just for this ease of conversation, I don't actually make this much, but if I make $200,000 a year, and my coworker makes 50, not getting that stimulus, and my coworker is getting paid $30,000 a year, and we're like that for 20 years, and then the employer says, okay, we probably need to pay equal people, equal pay, and they get that raised to $200,000 a year. What do we do about the fact that person probably got into debt, that they have a lot more catching up to do? It's not just the solution of, well, the situation has changed, so therefore we are equitable. We have equality now, but we don't have the same equity. Mm-hmm. And that's generally a conversation that people can understand. I can say, yeah, we passed the law, we changed the law, but there's still a lot of catching up that we have to do. And I'm fine if my ideologies are not the solution. That's okay. I'm not necessarily fighting for my ideologies of being, we have to do it this way. Can you agree that we need to fight for equity? And if we need to fight for equity, how do we get to that place?